Hi, this is Kyle Brown,
Hi, this is Milan Jani.
and we're going to be showing our Project Part 3. To begin, we're going to be going through the new user registration input validation. For starters, we're going to use a name that was already chosen. This informs us that the username already exists, so we will go back now and try again with a password that does not match. Oh, actually, I apologize. We need to do the username first, and then a password that does not match, as that takes precedence. This informs us that the passwords do not match. We go back, and then try again with a email that has already been taken. We are then informed that that email already exists, so now we will just finish the registration with a working user. So now that we've made it this far, we're going to log in, and then I'm going to pass it to Melon to explain our queries list.
Hi, so for our part 3, we had to go through multiple list of queries and then make sure they all work with our database. So for the easement of it, we actually made a table and gave it a link on the home page that you can click, and that will take you to the list of all the queries. Here is the list of all the queries with respective links to that particular query. So if you click on query 1, it will take you to the query 1 link. Query 2 will take you to the particular query 2. So I will first go through the JSP of how we made this query list. So when you go here and click here, the query list, this is a pretty simple JSP. It has a pretty simple header, and then we used ahref to actually take you to the particular link of queries. So if you, with this help of this ahref, it will take you to the query 1 JSP, over here to query 2 JSP, and then we used some styling and just creating a table, and this is how it will basically it creates a particular table that you see over here to make this queries list. Now I'm going to go to the query 1 link that will show the JSP or the front end format for the query 1. So here we have a header of what it says, the list of what the query 1 describes. It's a list of the users who posted at least 2 jokes that are posted on the same day. One has a tag of X and another has a tag of Y. To show you how the JSP works, I'm going to take you back to the here. It's over here we are implementing a method post and action of query 1, and then we are getting 2 inputs from as tag X and tag Y, and then we have a submit button that will actually contact with our servlet and will give you the result in a table format. To go over the result and the servlet format, I'll hand it back to Kyle.
So once we have been passed to query 1 by a specific query 1 JSP, we move to the servlet, where it catches in our switch statement. Down here where we have queries, so for query 1, we go to the query 1 function. Down here we find that function where we are pulling tag X and tag Y directly from the JSP. This is simply debugging information. Here we call query 1 by passing tag X and tag Y over to here, which is our query DAO. So to begin, here is query 1, and so this is essentially query 1 also refers to problem 2 of the assignment, but because the first one was input validation, we began our numbering at number 2 with query 1. So to begin, this one is finding the users that have posted tags that have made the post rather on the same day with tags of X and Y. And essentially this is the SQL for this situation. we plug in tag X and tag Y into these question marks respectively, and then pass the result back to query 1 on the function, where we then pass that on to the query 1 JSP. So to show the function of this, we have two tags, rather, lean and chips, which will output the user that has posted a joke, or two separate jokes, rather, with those two tags on the same day, with user 1. To continue, we'll move on to query 2, where it's very similar. These essentially follow the same methodology, in which we are passing information for some, and for other ones, we are simply populating a table and outputting the information. The complicated one would be query 4 that had dynamic drop-down menus, and I will pass it to Millen to explain.
So in this particular query, we had to list the other users who befriended by both user X and user Y. For here, we had to make two dynamic drop-down. So for there, we made a user X and user Y, which is particularly grabbing the information from all the users list that we already have in our database. So when you hit the drop down, you will see all the particular users that we have in our database in user X and in user Y. To take you to the uh, JSP, let me take you back here. Oh, query 4 is right here. So to make our dynamic drop down, we have right here. We created a form for two particular dynamic drop-downs. One we passed as user X and one we passed it as user Y. This is by using the option right here and passing the var as user and grabbing user ID, which you can see when we do the drop-down. That's particularly user ID that we are displaying in the drop-downs for user X and user Y. And after clicking the button right here that says click to populate user tables, it will populate the users that we have selected and that matches the query. I will hand it back to Kyle to explain how the servlet part of it works, and he will also display the result for a particular case in our database.
So to begin, of all of the query JSPs that we had to do, this one was probably the most complicated. It involved us instead of calling a specific JSP to pass information to, we instead call an action. In this case, poll users for query, which sends us back to the control servlet. To this action, which then in turn sends us to the poll users function down here. This function essentially just grabs a list of usernames, which can be found over here. Oh, I'm sorry. Which can be found in the list all users function right here. Because in the function in the servlet, we then call the list all users function in query DAO, which is found right here. This is in turn pulling simply the user IDs from the table users, and then from there we then send this information as a request. We set the attribute and send it to query 4 on that JSP. In query 4.jsp, when we hit the submit button, we then call query 4 as an action. In query 4, we do two things. We recall the list all users function so that we can repopulate the dynamic drop-down lists, and then we also call answer users from the query 4 function in the DAO, and that is what is in turn finding friends that have been the people that have been befriended by our user X and our user Y. To show how this works, we are going to simply use these two to find that both of these people have friended user A3. The rest of the JSPs follow a very similar formula to this, with this one being the most difficult. And so I will pass it back to Noah to kind of run down the rest of them and show those.
As Kyle explained, we actually made on the similar basis of the the queries that we already saw. So when you go to queries, I will actually run you down to all the queries, their GSPs, how they look in the front end, and then we can actually go one by one over the different like the formatting of the JSP. So since we have seen the query 4 already, I'll go to query 5. Over here also, as you can see, it displays all the users who never posted any excellent jokes. A joke is excellent if at least 3 reviews are excellent. So when you click here to populate the users table, it will give you all the user ID. And for example, if we click here, these are all the users that meets the criteria of the query that we have. When you go to query 6, it displays all the users who never posted a poor review. For example, when you go here, it do the same from our query. It will display all the users that have never posted a poor review. For query 7, here display all the users who posted some reviews, but each of them is poor. So the same formula as I showed you above, it's the user that meets the criteria is generated over here in the table. For query 8, it is going to display those users such that each joke they posted so far never received any poor reviews. The same concept, when you click here, it will populate the user in this table, and as such for the query 9 it follows. So, but over here, since we have to do 2 different users, it will populate user A and user B with the list of a user A and B such that they always give each other excellent review for every single joke they posted. So over here we are making a table that will display a pair of A and B users. I'll run you down with all the queries or all the JSPs that we have wrote for those particular queries. So they follow, as we saw in the front end, pretty similar. Oh, sorry, there. Actually, let me open it right here. Okay, so they follow the same method we post, and then query 5 is the action that we are performing, and it's a simple submit button with that will populate a table that is right here formatted. And for query 6, it is similar of method post and action of query 6 that is going to be called from the servlet, and then we are generating a table based on the query result that we receive from our users, or sorry, from our query DAO. For query 7, the same formatting, and then we are generating a table based on the results from query DAO after running our SQL. For query 8, as you can see here, we are keeping our action pretty similar so that it doesn't confuse us, like by creating a form that has method post and action of query 8, and then giving it a table, like displaying all the results in a table. And for query 9, it was a little bit different, but kind of following the same path of giving a header on top, and then method of post, and then action of query 9. And then we are here right now, we are generating 2 tables, but since we had to do a little subheading of a table, we use a little different formatting of giving right here the excuse me the thread, and giving adding a what's it called, just a subheading to our table, and now Kyle will go over one by one with the SQL, or sorry, the SQL in queries DAO and the servlet.
So let's move on to the rest of the SQL that we used. We were looking at the query now. We looked at number one already, and again, similar to the query GSPs, these all follow a very similar formatting, where above you will have a string that is either then passed to a prepared statement or a regular statement, depending on whether or not we needed input from the user. Query 2, for example, does, and so we pass it to a prepared statement. We set the string based on a string passed to this argument from the control servlet. And so one by one, we move down, and some of them are obviously a little more complicated than others. But these one by one satisfy specifically the function that is called from the control servlet over here. For instance, query 4 calls query 4 and then passes that information to query 4, and so on, 7, 7, and 7. And so that pretty much concludes our project for part 3. And we hope that this explanation helps you understand.